Room. Hello to everyone who's virtual. We are live, so we are streaming. We've got a few people that are joining in virtually, but we're waiting for a few more guests to arrive, and then we'll start. So for the people who are there who are looking at us virtually, hang in there. We'll start in 5 minutes, but we'll get the show running. Nice. Thank you. Hello, hello. Again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start soon. Please grab a drink, find a table, and let's get ready for the event. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Please find a seat if you haven't already for the people in the room, of course. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Or not? Long week for everyone, huh? And it's only Wednesday. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. For those of you who've been here before, welcome back. Always nice to have you guys at our offices. Welcome to our space. For those of you who are here for the first time, I know Jose was saying you've never been here before. So welcome to this. Welcome to our space. This is where all the magic happens, and we hope to have you again here soon. For the people joining virtually, of course, all the media houses, thank you very much for being with us this morning and being at this exciting event. Very excited. We do have a few people in the room. If you can't see them, I think on the screen they can only see me. So I'm not talking to myself. I am talking to quite a few people. That's why I'm going to try and make some jokes and try to get some laughs as well. All right. So to start, so in 2020, Payfast launched its first annual report. Now, this report was called E-commerce Performance Index. And essentially what we did was we focused on looking at what the impact of COVID-19 was in the previous year. In 2021, we launched our second report, also called E-commerce Performance Index, not as exciting as the one we have now. But essentially, that one was focusing more on outlining key predictions for the retail sector and exploring long-term impact of COVID-19 upon consumer spending and consumer behavior. This year, things are a little bit different. This year, we've rebranded. This year, all the entities have come together. This year, our offering is much more exciting. This year, our annual report is called State of Pay. And essentially, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be unpacking the next frontier in the payments industry, which, of course, is financial inclusion. So what we're going to be doing is going to be looking from e-commerce from open commerce to open banking, to payments, to looking at how all the efforts that are focused on bringing about previously underserved merchants and consumers into the digital ecosystem. So now, luckily for you, you don't have to listen to me the whole morning for the whole hour. I've got some exciting speakers, some exciting panelists that we're going to be discussing with today. And these guys have a lot of wealth and knowledge when it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to payments, when it comes to open banking, when it comes to driving financial inclusion in the township communities in South Africa. Before that, I know we've got a few questions and polls for the guys that are joining virtually. So do answer the questions, and we'll go through that as we go throughout the panel discussion. But for the guys in the room, I just like to ask you guys a question. Who can tell us what the estimated value of South Africa's township market is currently? Does anyone know? Anyone? Owen? Yeah? Okay. Anyone else? No? Anyone else? Pamela? Lindy? No? Okay. The actual estimated value is 260 billion rands. So about 19 million unbanked South Africans, which is about 18% of the population, which is very, very exciting. So in this panel discussion, we're going to unpack a little bit more of that. We're going to unpack financial inclusion, payments, and how do we drive payments and growth within these specific communities as well. So I'm going to invite our guest speakers to join us on stage, and I'd like you guys to please give them a nice warm welcome as they come. I'm going to call them up individually. Our Managing Director at Payfast, Mr. Brendan Williamson, please come on stage. Our Chief Commercial Officer, Mr. David Adams, please come on stage. Head of Capitec Pay at Capitec Bank, Mr. Jerome Passmore, please come on stage. Commercial Director at Yebofish, Mr. Khosi Tuahong, please welcome on stage. All right, we will have a Q&A session at the end as well, so feel free to ask questions. And for the guys virtually, please drop your questions on the chat, and we'll review all questions as we go along with the event. We've got one mic. We're going to share that amongst everyone. I'm going to put it here first. All right, how's everyone feeling? Good? All right. Let's put this down here. Well, perhaps to start, for some of the people virtually, who maybe might not know who Khosi is, who Jerome is, please can you just give us a brief intro of who you are, what it is that you do, and what exactly you're trying to achieve in the respective industries that you're in. Of course, we'll start with you and then we'll go along. Yeah. There we go.
Morning, everyone. Khosi Tuahong. Just a brief background about myself. Spent about 15 years in the Coca-Cola company. Started off right at the bottom as a trainee sales rep and worked my way up in the organization. Over time, realized I'm very passionate about the local economy and how we actually building it and how people actually get products. So started off an organization in 2018, ran it for about 4 years, and unfortunately had to close down because of COVID. But I've been doing a lot of consulting work, particularly in the township market. So I've been with Yebofish just over 5 months now. Feels like it's 12 years. But the fantastic thing about Yebofish, and the reason I joined Jessica, if some of you guys might know her, she's the CEO. The reason why I joined is her passion on making a difference. And not just going into the market and serving the market, but just genuinely making a difference in the entire value chain. And that's what I'm passionate about as well. So hopefully that will come out in some of the questions that I answer today. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jerome Passmore. I'm responsible for Capitec Pay. Capitec Pay is probably now about 10 months old. We launched it in the beginning of February this year. And it started out of our ambition to really disrupt payments and make payments more accessible to everybody in the economy, making payments safer, especially for our clients. And I suppose this panel discussion and this morning is going to be about exploring that a bit further. So thank you for having me.
Okay.
Great. Am I introducing myself as well?
Yes, please.
Great. Good morning, everybody. I'm David Adams. As Linda said, I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Payfast. I've been with the Payfast business for 7 months now. It's gone very fast, very exciting 7 months. Previously, I've been with the Network International Group for little under 7 years, based out of Dubai. So Yeah, also hugely excited to be unpacking this topic because this year has been the first time in 16, 17 years that I've been back working in South Africa. And what an exciting time to be here with all of the advancements. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you.
Morning, everybody. I'm Brendan Williamson. I am Managing Director of Payfast. Been in the business for about 10 years as we've gone through mergers and acquisitions. I think really if I opened the State of Pay report, the one page that really caught my attention is the headline that speaks to the Kazi e-commerce revolution. And it's something I myself is very passionate about in terms of the inclusion of the informal sector into this world that we know as the online world. And when you see a headline like that, it really resonates with me because I truly believe there is a Kazi revolution coming across the townships. And we'll unpack that a little bit more this morning. And as we speak about financial inclusion, exactly what financial inclusion actually is. I think we all have our own definitions and interpretations of that. But once again, good, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I think to start, I mean, we did mention that we're going to be unpacking financial inclusion. And for me, it's always important to understand why, the importance of that. And Kgosi, as someone who's very, very active as part of what Yebo Fresh does, why, in your definition, is it important that we tackle financial inclusion? And how would you define financial inclusion?
So at the moment, about give or take 70% of the transactions are cash. We all know security concerns in South Africa. So by ensuring financial inclusion, we'll be able to eradicate, number one, the biggest dilemma that we have in the country, which is crime. But more than anything, it's just formalizing that economy. It's quite important that the guys are able to manage their finances and be able to have traceability of all the transactions. And you can't do it with collecting cash. You need to have folks, you need to manage your business correctly. And that's what we're trying to do. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done, particularly in educating our customers and in managing their business. And we can only do that if we include them financially and give them opportunities to actually raise capital, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how they grow. And that's how this economy will be able to grow by making sure that we help them as well as much as possible.
And how would you define what financial inclusion is?
So like I said, access to capital is very important. And right now, a lot of guys don't have that. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people are still scared of using transactions, digital transactions in the township economy. And we need to migrate them towards understanding the safety elements towards it and the level of convenience that it actually brings. The paradigm shift is still a lot. We still have a long way to go, but yeah, the adoption level is actually coming to life right now.
Thank you. It's going to be a bit interesting navigating the mic, but the next question is for you, Brendan. So can you just talk us, through what we talk about open commerce, and how does that concept of open commerce drive financial inclusion?
Yeah, I think when we talk about financial inclusion, you've got to go down. I mean, it's all relevant to the individual that you're speaking to in terms of financial inclusion. Financial inclusion generally is making sure that financial services can be absorbed at all levels of the economy, all grades of the economy. So we talk about us being able to have life cover, access to life cover, for instance. Does that appeal to every man on the street? Does he have access to life cover? Funeral covers. Does he have the ability, you spoke about credits and loans, to be able to access that capability? If you look at it from the informal sector, you think about it, we talk about banking, etc. Understand that individual to open a bank account needs to leave their business in that informal sector to go and open that bank account. While they're traveling to go open that bank account, that business is not making money. So digital banking into the informal sector, etc. Then we talk about open commerce. And once again, open commerce is also relevant to the platform or to you. So I almost look at open commerce very similar to, if you want to talk about blockchain in some respect, like the blockchain of e-commerce online. So open commerce is the accessibility of services within an ecosystem that gets a result, right? So if I'm selling goods, what do I have access to in terms of the open commerce platform, in terms of logistics, to be able to get those goods to market, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I perceive open commerce to be in that space. You have open commerce platforms. And really, if you want to unpack the success of open commerce, you just got to look at Nigeria. Nigeria have really embraced open commerce in terms of the ecosystem that they've built within their retail network and the e-tail network in terms of getting goods from warehouse, getting it into stores, getting it shipped out, and how they actually involve the entire economy to drive that open commerce growth.
Thank you very much. A big part of open commerce is open banking. Jerome, can you just talk us through, when you talk about open banking, what role does it play in bringing out financial inclusion?
Yeah, so open banking is an expression for allowing what was traditionally only banks participating in the exchange of information and payments between different consumers in the banking industry, now turning themselves and opening up those services to allow third parties to be able to participate in that banking infrastructure. So a good point would be there are two primary use cases for open banking. The first one is allowing third parties to initiate a payment request for a consumer, a banking client, to authorize their payment on the bank's infrastructure, for example, on their banking app. That was traditionally only done between banks or intermediaries such as the various card rails and card schemes. So what that means is that all of a sudden you are now increasing participation of third parties, whether they are merchants or retailers, whoever they are, to be able to actively participate and actually push payments into their various environments. That's probably the biggest use case in South Africa. The second one comes to mind is that of data sharing. So, for example, if a banking customer needs to apply for finance with another institution, take out a cell phone contract, whatever it might be, they're typically asked to go and provide a bank statement with, let's say, 3 months transaction history. Typically, they can do that on the app, but most institutions or providers don't trust electronic versions of that, and therefore want something that's physically done and stamped with banking stamp on it. And there's a lot of friction for that. The client has to, get in a car or climb into a taxi, get to a branch, stand in a queue, get this bank statement, then make sure it gets given to that third party who wants it. Imagine a world where you can share that transaction history in a very secure way, where there's no friction involved, no inconvenience involved for that banking customer to share that data with a third party, and that data shared in a way that's secure and means that their data has not been manipulated, so they can trust the source of the information. Another example would be, and this is probably more for an e-commerce type of use case. As a merchant, you want to make sure that you know the customer that you're trading with. Someone's going to buy from your store online. Do you really know who they are? Especially if, for example, you have to ship goods to them. So imagine a scenario where the bank would share your ID with your consent, and that merchant can consume that service. How more secure can you get where the bank has validated the identity of a banking client and you have access to that? And that is another expression of creating financial inclusion.
Beautifully said. And I know that before you've mentioned previously that, partnership the partnership model played a big part in the success of Capitec Pay. What would you say is, or rather, let me rephrase and ask, what is the importance of collaboration and partnership in allowing or driving financial inclusion?
Yes, I mean, that's a very good point. So the innovation in financial inclusion is going to come through collaboration with third parties, such as an organization like Payfast. They have a distribution access to many merchants that they've built as a business over time. They have the ability to render the Capitec Pay experience in the e-commerce, in the checkout pages of their clients and their merchants. That partnership would not, our ability to push Capitec Pay as a safe way for our clients to check out online would not be possible without that partnership. If we had to do it on our own, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today sharing what I'm about to say. It's through that partnership, and building on their experiences, their feedback to us about what's working, what's not working, helps us improve the product and getting it to where it is today in terms of conversion rate, the speed of the transactions, etc., etc.
Thank you. David, when it comes to what is needed to be done when it comes to achieving financial inclusion, what would you say are some of the requirements for financial inclusion, and who holds the responsibility to drive the conversation of financial inclusion, inclusivity?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to say, the obvious thing to say, is that financial inclusion is the responsibility of everybody in the ecosystem. Getting a bit of feedback here.
Let me put his mic a little bit lower, please.
Let me test. Okay, that might be better. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it is the responsibility of everybody in the ecosystem, in the value chain. I think there's a few key factors at the heart of financial inclusion. Obviously, it's financial literacy, and I think that is really incumbent on whether it's payment providers, whether it's banks, whether it's the regulator. It's about how do we take that financial literacy to the underserved parts of the market, because let's test that. That's better. Yeah. So a lot of the barriers, I think, to financial inclusion and adoption of financial inclusion is that lack of financial literacy. All right. So it's a bit of a push and a pull effect. So how do you take financial products and services? How do you make it more affordable and accessible, and take that to the underserved communities? But then once it's there, how are you ensuring that adoption through financial literacy? So I think that's one thing. Financial inclusion generally tends to halt at the on-rails. To get somebody financially included, it's all about the on-rails. It's how do you convert cash into the digital ecosystem, and that is about accessibility. That's about affordability, right? Because those are the factors. Where's the reach? How do you get somebody that's 300 kilometers in a rural area to convert cash that is collected from an ATM or an employer once a month into a digital ecosystem? It's about literacy. It's about ensuring that by handing over 500 Rand, the fee to convert that into the digital ecosystem is not prohibitive. So those are some of the key factors that drive that around financial inclusion.
To get used to this. There you go. Thank you. And I'd like to bring it back to Jose, because David mentioned a very good point, which is financial literacy. And the work that you guys in the townships, which is part of the big work, is educating people, getting people to be aware that they can actually start using these forms of payments. How do you guys tackle that? How do you guys tackle getting the message out there, reaching the people, and providing financial literacy in a sense?
Okay. So one of the biggest tasks that we have is we've partnered with Jobs Fund to educate our customers, local customers, on just managing their finances and generally how to run their businesses. So we've actually realized that it's actually worked tremendously. I mean, the results that are coming out of that are fantastic. But there's still a lot to be done. I mean, we've literally trained just over 10% of our entire base. So we still have a long way to go. But from a commercial perspective, some of the stuff that we're doing from a sales rep, we educate our sales rep to actually have those commercial discussions and impart that knowledge to our customers as well. And we've actually seen quite a big change and a quicker adoption rate, particularly when it comes to avoiding cash transactions and transacting through multiple, obviously, options. Instead of paying us cash, they can actually pay through other transactions. So we've seen a migration towards that. We're still concerned that it's not moving fast enough. But yeah, there is still progress. There's great progress moving towards that.
Yeah. Brendan, I'd like to pose the next question to you. And I want us to talk a little bit about the benefits of bringing people. I mean, again, we've spoken a little bit about that, but to actually tackle is why is it so important, and what are some of the benefits that we've seen with SMEs that are in our environment when it comes to bringing more people into the digital economy?
Well, firstly, it's just good for the economy, right? So if we look at, I mean, a lot of the talk this morning has been around financial inclusion, the informal economy, open banking, words been spoken, but it's part of, firstly, this recognize the fact that that is part of South Africa. And we shouldn't be alluded to the fact. I mean, if you look at the informal economy, you mentioned 260 million rands worth of spend in that economy. I think our perception of what happens in that economy is also skewed in some respect. I think the average spend in an informal sector is about on top end goods like clothing is 3,000 rand per household per annum, and that's they'd save that 3,000 rand to go spend or buy a Hugo Boss t-shirt or a Hugo Boss shirt rather than shop at a low cost. Over the last year, we've seen an increase in terms of spend just within the informal sector itself. If you want spaza shops, you know, in terms of the quasi vendors, I think it's about 15 to 16% increase just in trade within that informal sector. The reason for that being, and we were at a talk recently where they spoke about the cost of migrating out of that informal sector. Why, when those quasi stores, those spaza shops now have, if not better, buying power than the retailers in the formal market have? And we spoke about open commerce, etc., and it's developing under our noses in those sectors, to be honest with you. So it's the power of many instead of the power of one. So they've come together and they've managed to go negotiate pricing on items and goods in those stores. So there's no need for that individual to move out of the township anymore. There's no need for them to get out and go buy at a mainstream retailer when they can literally get the same goods for less at the spaza shop. So why? Again, I'm running my own little store. I don't have to get in a taxi, leave the township, take half a day out to go do my grocery shopping, whatever it might be. I can do that now within the informal sector. When you're talking about SMEs and merchants, it's how do we get them included within that ecosystem? How do we get them to be part of that ecosystem? Everybody, and you speak to every bank, and you got to inform. It's the main topic is generally how do we eradicate cash? How do we remove cash? How do we? Cash is king. How do we get rid of it? And I've got a different take on it. I say, how do we embrace cash? How do we look at embracing cash within that ecosystem? Because it's not going to go away overnight. And Dave mentioned, and Jerome mentioned in terms of it's an ecosystem, right? So when I'm going to the spaza shop to buy for my goods, I'm putting cash over the counter. That spaza shop owners then take in that cash to go spend it elsewhere to get the case of Cokes that he's going to sell, right? So it's a whole ecosystem that's developed around cash. And you often speak about, well, what's the next thing? How, from a digital perspective, how do we get digital payments into that ecosystem? One would have thought by now the M&Os would have hit it, right? The M&Os, I mean, they got the mass power to right in there. Everybody's walking around the mobile phone. But one word that has not been raised yet this morning, and it's the word trust. And we've talked about education into those markets. The trust is a massive factor that needs to be considered. And one of the reasons why I believe that the M&Os haven't hit it from a digital perspective is, I don't know if everyone remembers, how many times have you read about airtime scams? Airtime scams. People are putting airtime in their mobile phone. They don't get the airtime that they're putting. And there was a long thing with a lot of the M&Os from years and years. So the informal sector, in some respects, doesn't trust that mobile phone as a method of commerce in terms of transacting because, wow, I've bought airtime before on this. I wanted 100 Rand airtime and I never got my airtime. So now how can I trust this device to actually be a method of transacting? And you question why the likes of M-Pesa, etc., didn't take off in South Africa, but yet massively successful outside in East Africa. So in terms of inclusion, from a merchant perspective, it's looking at an ecosystem. You may not be the guy to go deliver into the township, but believe me, there are delivery partners in that township. So find agents for your products, set them up within the township, and use the delivery distribution centers, etc., of that township. Work with the sector instead of trying to invent the sector. And I think that's where we get it wrong. And that's, as merchants, that would be one of the suggestions I would do, is look at that sector from the other side out and have a look at who can I partner with in that sector. You don't have to do it yourself. There is an economy that's already existing. Be part of it.
Would you like to have a take on that as well?
There are 2 points I wanted just to perhaps elaborate on what Brendan mentioned. I think the first one was just around, cash being king. So trust is definitely one factor. Another one is cash is truly interoperable, which means that wherever you are, accepting cash is a form of tender that I can use anywhere. So if we want to make an impact on moving cash or reducing the reliance on cash in the economy, we need to make digital payments interoperable. It means, and actually with that, the cost must kind of go down to zero. So if I go into a spaza shop and I want to pay that person with a digital form of payment, there should be no cost to send a receiver to benefit from that particular transaction. That's the first stepping stone. And I think with the recent introduction of Payshap, I think we are making the right moves as a country to get to that point where we can make the sending and receiving of digital payments at no cost. I think that's the first stepping stone. The second thing I wanted just to touch on relates to, I think, wait now. Golly. Okay, I'll come back to that. I'm sure it'll come back to mind.
Okay, thank you. David, I want to pose the next question to you. The concept of frictionless comes up quite frequently and repeatedly in our conversations around open e-commerce and around open banking as well. How much frictionless can e-commerce get? How much more frictionless can e-commerce get, and with the help of innovation in this particular space?
Yes, I think we've made a lot of progress. When you look at some of the advancements around authentication in the past few years, whether that's newer versions of 3D Secure or other authentication methods, but there's still friction, right, in the process. Whether that's every time I shopping on a different channel, going from I may be spending. I have a long relationship with a retailer in the face-to-face environment, and suddenly I'm purchasing from them online, and the authentication process is new. I need to verify myself. That's all friction in the process. So I believe the advent or the usage of both biometrics and AI in the authentication process is going to see us see quite a bit of acceleration around frictionless payments in the e-commerce space. Essentially, where you want to get to is right. The bit you look forward to is not making the payment for the goods once you've chosen it online. You look forward to finding the perfect jacket or finding the pair of shoes, and next thing you wanted to show up at your doorstep. You don't look forward to, right, now I'm going to get out my MasterCard or my Visa or my bank account to make the payment. So I think adopting technology and deriving frictionless payment around that, payment really needs to be a byproduct, right? It needs to be something that happens once you've made that conscious decision that you want to buy goods. So I think look out for biometrics, look out for the use of AI, and I think the combination of the two, both in the online and the face-to-face space, is going to see us make significant leaps in frictionless payments.
Brendan, I'd like to give you an opportunity to add on that as well, if there's anything that you'd like to add.
Yeah, I'm very much speaks to Jerome's point in terms of open banking. How does open banking play a part in that whole frictionless process in terms of payments? I mean, legacy goes, right? So the bank would get you to a point as you grew up in a banking realm. You would get your introductory card and checkbook back in the days, and you felt so proud when you got your first checkbook. I mean, you wrote checks even if you didn't need to write checks, and post-dated them because you wanted to be seen as from a status of, now I've got my first checkbook. And then it progressed to like my silver card, and then it's my gold card, and you took that gold card out at every possible store you could get because you now want to pay with your gold card so everybody could see you get the gold card. And then it went to the platinum card and then the black card, because all the status was attached to a color, right? Now, in this realm, in terms of frictionless, that doesn't exist anymore. You're not pulling out your card. You can't reveal that status to someone else, and you hope it's going to get you the date because she sees your black card pulled out. It's how else do we bring that gratification into it as well? So you mustn't forget, frictionless is part of the journey, but you still have to get elements of the human element through that frictionless journey. The open banking part of that is very important, though, because think about now, I shop on a store. That store is a merchant of a bank. That bank has access to data of that store. I'm also a client of the same bank. How do we marry the two? How do we bring it together? How does it, when Brendan lands on that store, the bank knows it's Brendan, the merchant's got data passed from the bank. How do we reduce the friction of that? There's data that can be passed, and do we have to do 3D Secure? There's authentication between the bank and the merchant in terms of that guarantee. If you look at the casino world, the sports betting world, I, as a high roller, I automatically get credit attached to my name, right? So it's like, welcome to the table, Mr. Williamson. We've just loaded you with 10,000 and your credit. Don't worry, because they know who I am as a customer. They've already got me vetted, et cetera, and they've preempted me at credit. And that's really what's going to create the frictionless, I believe, in terms of that. It's the sharing of data between third parties that will enhance that process. And Dave spoke about AI coming into play. But definitely comes down to open banking. How do you bring more parties into that ecosystem? And the agreement for data to be shared amongst that system.
Again, some of the surveys that I got was that 50% of our merchants believe that it's too early to say what kind of impact they think open commerce, open banking will have, preferring to wait until the concept is more developed. So what can merchants do in the meantime to ensure that they're ready to take on the full advantage of open banking, of open e-commerce, once the development comes and once the continuation and the growth of innovation comes to play?
I'll almost say it's going to happen whether they want it to happen or not in some respects, because your partners that you're partnering with, the merchant, the likes of a Payfast, the Capitec Bank, etc., we'll be driving that open commerce, that frictionless payment in terms of the service and solution that we offer. So they're going to get caught up into that environment. Really, the shopping cart platforms that they operate on or they're utilizing are doing exactly the same thing from a data perspective and storage, etc. So they're going to be part of it, whether they want to be part of it or not. The ecosystem will drive it. It will go as we get more advanced in terms of open banking, AI, etc. You're just going to get caught up with it. I don't think it's something they should overthink, to be honest with you. I would just say embrace it, because you're not going to be able to be not part of it. I would say embrace it.
David, I see you nodding. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen it in other parts of the world where businesses didn't react to either regulatory changes or emerging technology. In Europe, the Payment Services Directive was an example, and when it eventually was done unto businesses and they needed to enforce it, it meant quite lengthy and expensive investments in business transformation. So I think it's about readying your ecosystem, readying your platforms to be able to adopt these technologies or these concepts, and businesses really need to think about or stop thinking about use cases as singular. So and I'll make an example. We think of I'm a retailer that sells electronic goods. We think of a use case or a user journey as quite singular, or what the end consumer is doing is purchasing a fridge, but really consumers have evolved in such a way that they want to do a journey in one. I want to purchase the fridge, but you know what? I'd like to get the insurance for that fridge as well, and I'd probably like to, have a tradesman order a tradesman at the same time to make sure it's plumbed for water flow. I don't want to do singular journeys, and that does have a dependency on your ecosystem. Are you crafting user journeys? And opening up the value-added services around your primary or core business. So it's important they think about that. It's a great opportunity. It's an opportunity for incremental revenue, business growth, diversifying their revenue, diversifying their business offerings. So it's I'd say businesses shouldn't think about it being done unto them, but really look at it as an opportunity, because it's a massive opportunity.
Speaking of opportunities, Jose, when we started, we spoke about what the market value looks like currently in the township and the underserved communities. Some merchants will say, look, I don't want to operate in a rural area. I don't want to operate in the township. They don't see the value. How can we start driving more businesses to start operating and to start finding opportunities and actually getting involved in not only getting something out of it, but actually evolving the economy and these communities as a whole?
I think when we started, it's pretty simple. How big is the economy, and how much transactions are going through it? And I think importantly, a third of the population in South Africa lives in the township. You can't ignore that. But I think what's important is there's huge opportunities. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But I think just going back to the financial inclusion element, I think it's quite important that as much as we're moving towards moving the retailers towards cashless transactions, et cetera, it's important as well to get the consumers to purchase via cashless. because what that does is builds the base for these guys to be able to transact, etc., etc. So that's quite critical as well. So it's more like a two-pronged approach. As much as we focusing on the retailers and the informal retailers that are in the market, it's also important to to change the paradigm of a normal consumer that's going to a spaza shop to go and buy their bread, whether it's through a wallet option or whatever the case may be, that they can actually transact with the store through wallet. So it's a journey. It's a great journey, but we're very excited as Evo Fresh that we've got organizations like this that are focusing rigorously on making sure that we move the payments to digital because it will benefit us. I mean, the crime levels that are happening in South Africa are crazy, and us collecting cash is not helping at all. So, it's important that we tap into this type of space to help us as well grow as an organization.
Thank you. Before we continue, any questions in the room? I want to open up a space for questions in the room. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and you'll give you a mic and feel free. And also any questions virtually, can we check? Do you have any questions? Should I check my phone? No questions on virtually. Anyone in the house, in the room? Not yet. Okay. What you guys think about your questions? We'll continue here. Black Friday is coming up. November, very, very busy, as we know. And it's around the corner. It continues to grow, both in payments volumes, both in transaction volumes, and what that looks like. Anyone would like to speak on the likely trend of 2024 coming up with regards to Black Friday and how that trend has been growing since forever?
I won't speak about the trend, but I'll speak about the sentiment. You'll see in the report. I personally have spoken to loads of merchants about Black Friday, and the huge positive sentiment from the merchant base, especially amongst SMEs as well. And it's interesting, SMEs are embracing Black Friday more and more, rather than worrying about how the bigger brands or the bigger wholesalers will take away on the day or on the period. But really, what I'm hearing from smaller SMEs is it's not only a good opportunity to accelerate revenue, but it's a very good opportunity for them to showcase their product set. And they're finding that showcasing their product set during this period, the repeat business that they're getting back from discounted sales over this period is what's driving and fueling the business through the rest of the year. So hugely exciting on that. Dad?
Friday. I get shivers. Yeah, I mean, we've known Black Friday. I mean, the South Africa, the second largest country outside of the States to adopt Black Friday to the state that we see it. But it's, to David's point, in terms of showcasing your products, etc. I mean, it's more about the hype around Black Friday, and I think it's almost become a culture in South Africa. When we see what happened when the Springboks won recently, and Black Friday almost takes on a similar vibe where everybody just gets caught up into this Black Friday, and the narrative starts becoming. I mean, I think I've had 4 people in the last 2 weeks ask me, "So, what's in your Black Friday basket, Brendan? What's in your Black Friday basket, Brendan?" And that's generally the conversation that starts.
I was going to ask you, are you excited on Black Friday?
It's either going to be another vacuum cleaner or something. Yeah. Actually, there's nothing in my Black Friday basket as yet. And really speaking to, Black Friday has really become the hype around Black Friday and how we embrace it as South Africans, and we in an economy that's it's a tough economy. Let's not underestimate the impact that the economy has had on individuals and buyers. So we are looking for that opportunist buyer that comes across, and at the same time, potentially not. When you come across, when Dave says showcase the product, right? You went onto the platform, you wanted to buy that item, it was generally cheaper. Oh, but that's not. Oh, but wait, they've got something else. Let me go through it, and that's really is that opportunity to showcase product. I think really what's impacted Black Friday historically has been the logistics around Black Friday, right? Everybody waiting till this final month, making a transaction, and then have to wait these 6 weeks. Or I've been waiting to buy my son or my daughter that Christmas gift, only to realize I'm only going to get it in January. So what's the point of shopping on Black Friday? And that definitely has improved over the years of Black Friday in South Africa. You generally see the retailers now starting their sales earlier in the month. So you get the bigger retailers now, and I'm getting emails going from various Under Armour, etc., like advertising things a lot sooner to lessen the impact of logistics post Black Friday day to get there. But you're still getting the same deal. You're still getting some of the deals in terms of doing that. So it's a risk element. Am I prepared to take the risk now, buy it a little bit cheaper, or wait until then? To answer your question, do I think we'll have a good Black Friday? We've yet not to have a good Black Friday. So I'm going to go with the optimism to say, yes, we will have a good Black Friday. I think the economy needs it. I think us as individuals need it. Don't underestimate the joy we get from buying. There is an element of gratification around buying something. So I think that'll still continue. I think it'll be a good Black Friday. But I'm keen to hear from the banker.
For us, I think actually foremost is just keeping our clients safe during Black Friday. That's why I think a payment method like Capitec Pay is a safer way for our clients to purchase online. There's safety in that the merchant has been vetted, the payment provider has been vetted, the API is secure end-to-end encryption. So in that way, it keeps the client safe. They don't have to share a card information. They don't have to share their username and passwords, and that's for us is quite important. Just thinking about the delivery challenges, I was really excited to hear that a recent merchant via Payfast is a community-based app operating out of Hammanskraal. Delivery cost speed, I think that's what they're called. And they recently started with Capitec Pay, and it's still wonderful to see the amount of turnover and the amount of transactions that they're being able to process, which gives them access to their client base and allowing them to be able to purchase and to use their services, where the only alternative would have been cash or using card, which even for the merchant, card is a more expensive option. So, giving them access to a potentially a more cheaper way of acquiring a transaction helps stimulate those businesses. So yeah, maybe that's what's going to happen, I think, in further township opportunities.
And maybe, Khosi, David spoke about the sentiment that SMEs and merchants have around Black Friday and how they are, taking opportunity to actually diversify their product offering and be really prepared. What are the thoughts that you have around that, and what are you feeling or sensing within the merchants that operate in the space that you're in?
They're all excited. You can never. With Black Friday, everybody gets excited, right? So one of the things that we've done as well, we've actually adopted earlier promotions as well to avoid the rush on a particular Friday. So we're starting our Black Friday promotions on Monday, and customers will actually get it throughout the entire week. Now, what that does, it gives them the opportunity to run Black Friday promotions on that Friday because they'll have had their delivery already at a cheaper price. So those are some of the things that we've been thinking about as well. But everybody's excited about it. I mean, it pushes up sales, which we definitely need. So yeah, everybody's excited about Black Friday. I think you can't not get excited about it, especially as an organization that does B2B or even B2C rather. If you're selling to the end consumer or the end customer, you'll definitely get excited about Black
Friday. Any questions yet in the room? Still no questions? I'm going to close it now. Going once, going twice. Gone. All right. It's always very fascinating having these kinds of conversations, and I think it's an honor for, first of all, to be able to be part of this panel discussion, because this is our first in-person launch. In previous years, it was during COVID, 2020, 2021, just out of COVID, and the fact that we're actually looking ahead to say what are the trends that are coming and how do we tackle this conversation of financial inclusion, I think is very, very important. And maybe to close off, if I can just get either from David or Brendan to merchants that are, again, that are sort of looking at the economy and looking at how things were. What are some of the things you would say to them to say, look, in terms of adopting these trends, this innovation, these payment methods that are coming in, as providing all these different additional payment methods and so much happening within the technological space and technological advancement, what would you say to those SMEs starting off, wanting to use our platforms, wanting to be involved with us?
Yeah, I'd say embrace technology, work with the right partner. Embracing technology and diversifying your offerings or diversifying your payment methods, all of that means you are diversifying the segment you are focused on, right? And what that effectively means is you're not competing with 100 others in the same pool, right? As we grow the addressable market, it means, you know, the share for everybody in that pool becomes bigger. So think of it as opportunity to access more customers, to grow your business. So diversify your segment, diversify your offerings.
I mean, for me, the message would be is not be afraid of what you don't know. If you want to get into the informal sector, is to embrace it, right? It's an economy on its own, and there are partners that you can do that with. I mean, there's understanding of that sector that you can access to be able to get your products into that sector. We talk about payments being a local business. In South Africa, there's local within local. And it's getting to understand what that local looks like. And it does look daunting, but there's partners, ourselves, banks, with regards to getting information in terms of what those sectors look like. What are the products that are selling in those sectors, and that information is readily available. I would say not run from it, rather run towards it. You don't have to change your entire business model, but having the understanding that it is a form of localized payments within that sector, and there are methods to make use of it or to get access to those. And you don't have to change your business model overnight, but as a bit of advice, I would say you should be considering it. And what does your next year Black Friday look like? And is the informal sector perhaps a place you want to play?
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Jose, for joining us. Jerome, thank you very much. Lovely having you. David, Brendan, thank you very much. They are going to be around, so please feel free to network, to engage, and to ask more questions, maybe privately if you don't want to ask using a mic. But thank you very much for everyone for coming. And am I missing anything before we let them off the stage? Photos, of course. All right, go pose and enjoy the pictures. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Pastor. Thank you.